joining DeFi-Logic Symposium Sunday, every Sunday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. As a member of DeFi-Logic server, you can join our call every week and discuss in real time. Link is in the description below. DeFi-Logic is a crypto think tank for better decisions. In today's community call, we'll review a wrap-up with SP and DXY, as well as Eddie. The reviews are made from the T8 Tuesdays that we have every week. Then we'll also cover disrupting traditional blockchain models with Celestia's unique strategy for MMA Monday, WWF Wednesday, and Token Audit Thursday. So to get us started, I'll go ahead and bring up G-Force with his review.
Thank you, Christine. I'm going to look at basically this coming year, 2024, and what the legacy markets and economic outlook looks like. As we know, 2024 is an election year, so anything can happen, especially with this election, with supposedly a rematch between Biden and Trump. But we still wouldn't even know, and I don't think we're going to know, what the two candidates really are going to be, to not be in the election due to a trip and fall or just health issues. Trump can be out of the election because states are removing him from their ballots. We should have a Supreme Court decision this month on that. So I'm really watching that. On the 8th of this month, the Supreme Court's going to hear opening arguments from both sides whether Trump can be on a state ballot in Colorado. That's the initial case that's before the Supreme Court, is the Colorado appellate decision to remove Trump from the ballot for that state. So very interesting. Since this is such an unusual election, things are going to go crazy. And it's hard to figure out the markets or what they're going to do. This Stock Saturday write-up I made most of those comments, but what I'm going to really look at, and I'm going to scroll to it, is basically what BlackRock has talked about, what their forecast is for 2024. And he said that there isn't really one they can do because we're looking at basically new models. They're talking about a persistent higher interest rate and tougher financial conditions. So going forward, they're looking at that. The key was the persistent higher interest rates. So I agree with that, and I'll show you my chart real quick on the 30-year interest rates. So if you look at this, 30-year yields basically have a cycle, okay? So this cycle, and it's a 30-year cycle, you can see back here in the 80s, things were way up. Even before the 80s, we're looking at 15% interest rates. And then it's gone consistently down, as you can tell here. So we hit a bottom, which is basically zero interest rate, and that was the prime rate or the federal rate back here in 2020, before 2020. So since we're at zero, there's only one direction to go up, and that's up, okay? So we are at that bottom, we passed that bottom, so we are going to persistently see higher interest rates. I agree with BlackRock, not that my opinion really matters, but BlackRock is one of the few financial institutions, large financial institutions, that actually survived 2008 financial crisis really well. So their comments I pay attention to, and it says tougher financial conditions going forward. And what they talked about on that is that the financial markets are still adjusting to a new regime. So they're saying that there's a new regime in the economic conditions, and that new regime consists of shrinking workforce, geopolitical fragment, which is basically the war in Ukraine and also the war in the Middle East. And their key is low carbon transition, okay? So they're really focused on that as well. They produce a lot of material and put a lot of momentum between technology going forward. So to conclude real quick is that we have basically the 2024 legacy markets and economic outlook is anybody's guess. If somebody really feels that they nailed it and they know exactly what's going to happen, I am very suspicious of that. And just elections alone are an issue with the markets. Usually the market sits on the sideline to wait to see who's president and what kind of policies they're going to persist and push forward. But with this election, this is a constitutional crisis we haven't had since the Civil War, with who can be eligible on the ballot whether they're insurrection activity, whether that was actually activity in insurrection or not, by Trump is going to be decided by the Supreme Court. So that's my quick introduction, and I'll hand it back to Christine going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Great coverage on that. And now we'll bring up Eddie, and he'll give us a little bit of just a market recap, possibly reviewing a chart or two from calls made on TA Tuesday.
Let's check it out. This hasn't been the greatest week, price action wise, for anyone paying attention. I haven't been paying too much attention to the market because it's not that great. Bitcoin's basically doing nothing. It's just chilling in this little range. It's quite boring to watch and quite boring to do anything. Last time I was hoping to get a pop-up here to short. Now that we've just been chopping around more, I think I'll raise my target to right here to short because I think it'll blast through that area I was looking at last time at this point, but still doing nothing. We're still waiting for our targets to load up on lower, which I think we'll eventually get. Ethereum and Sol, basically the same thing. Not a whole lot to look at them. Their price action is basically the exact same. We did have this idea and it did give an initial pop, but it's trading back into it. I really don't like it anymore. So if anyone was like following that, I don't really love it anymore. I don't like how it just fell back into it. And we just have a whole bunch of, we created a lower high here. So it's not looking that great. Yeah, it just sucks. And then some of the other stuff that I was looking to hopefully get into, it just did nothing, guys. The market's been pretty crappy, honestly. Like the volatility isn't really there. It's slowly down. Initially, I wanted to get involved right here, and obviously that idea did not work at all. And then I wanted to get involved here, and it just decided to turn it into a bearish resistance instead. It's completely off on getting the bullish momentum that I thought we would have. It didn't happen. I was wrong. Same thing with Manta too. I was hoping to get involved somewhere around here, and it did. I erased the other line, but I was saying like if it starts putting in the bearish price action, which it is, just a series of lower highs to make sure to get out. So most of the stuff that I entered, I got out right around break even or slight profit or slight loss, and basically just like flat on the week because it's just been pretty crappy. So not a whole lot of exciting stuff to call back on. I will say though that keep an eye on the Sol Ethereum chart for now. Whenever Bitcoin hits our levels to load up on, I'll flash them really quick before I go. I think your Sol coins and your Ethereum coins are going to be what you want to get into. So it still seems like it's going to come down to this level. It might even take out all these relatively equal lows too. I think we're going to get cheaper prices lower. And just to throw this chart up again, the ideal scenario for me is to start taking out some of this stuff right here. Once the chart loads, you'll see like the big old box that I drew. And even looking at it on a high time frame, it just looks very distributive to me. So I don't even know if we're going to get that initial pop that I was desperately wanting to reshort, because I closed my initial short like around here thinking that we would pop up, and it's just not happening. So at this point, I'm just waiting for lower prices to load up on our favorite alts. But that's the idea for now. Not much has changed. It's the time where you don't want to overtrade and instead just, I don't know, learn, airdrop farm, do something different. But I will go ahead and pass it on back since there's not a whole lot of stuff to check out, guys. Just, yeah, load up on lower prices later.
Thank you, Eddie. And Eddie and GeForce are both on TA Tuesdays every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. We usually have an event up in the Discord, so feel free to set your reminder. And at this time, we'll go ahead and bring up Pepe, Sloth, and Trill, and we'll cover our weekly dose for the week, which was Celestia, the impact that they are having on the blockchain, as well as their unique strategy.
All right, so this week we're doing Celestia. There's some really cool stuff with Celestia, not just technologically, but the background, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I think a nice segue from charts is on chain. So Sloth, if you want to handle that, and then Bill and I can get into the kind of like the background business side of things and technical for Celestia.
Sure, I'll go ahead and share my screen. So I'll start off looking at Mint Scan right now, which is one of the block explorers, and also gives us a lot of other political data for the IBC networks, that call it the Internet of Blockchain, or the Blockchain Communication Protocol, which is what Cosmos is, and Celestia is a part of that. So you can see here, it just shows us the chart of the price action, and then here we can see some on-chain metric, just shows like current block height, number of transactions, a little over 11 million, transactions per block, currently 15.49. The block time, a little over 11 seconds. And then we see current inflation rate for the token, which is sitting at 8%, and then the current staking APR, which is 14.75. Then total supply of the tokens, a little over 1 billion. And then there's the current community pool, which is a little less than 500 million, or yeah, a little less than 1 million tokens currently. And then we can see the top validators here. Currently looking at you see Polychain Capital is currently the top validator. And then we got Go, Fanoa, and then a few others. So there's currently 192 validators and then 100 active validators at the moment. And then if we look at some of the other analytics here, this just shows current price and volume. This is looking at the past month. This just goes off of what Eddie was saying as far as the decrease in volume just throughout the whole market. And then this is just showing a snapshot of the market data. So we see current market cap's 3.4 billion, sitting at number 6. All-time high was $44. This was back in January 2022, and then all-time low was $1.16 in March 2020. And then this just shows the number of transactions over time. So it's been a slight increase over the past few months, but nothing crazy. And then here just shows the distribution of the validators. And then this is a cool visualization of the entire IBC network. So we took a look at this when we went over Cosmos a while back. This just shows visualization of all the different IBC networks connected together. So if we look at Celestia, for instance, we can see the amount of transactions sent and received across the network. And if we actually just zoom into Celestia, then we can see obviously the real-time transactions happening between the different networks. Yeah, pretty cool little tool they got available if you want to check it out at mintscan.io. And then yeah, that's pretty much it.
Celestia is very interesting, not just in a technical sense, but in a background sense. So the CEO, is actually an ex-hacker. If you don't know about the history of Anonymous and LulzSec, basically, from my understanding, LulzSec was an offshoot of a big group that was called Anonymous. Anonymous wasn't really what people think it was, and it quickly was overtaken by the feds, I think over a matter of years. There's a lot of controversy behind it, but if you go back into it, check it out, you can see that at a certain point, some of these guys ended up getting slammed with a lot of time. And so the group that is Anonymous, that still exists, is more like just a chat room, from my understanding. And basically what they do is, it's just a group of people that are interested in this type of stuff, right? Like the kind of cyberpunk lifestyle. And some of them are hackers, some of them are not. And they all have different ethical compasses. And the thing that's interesting about CEO is that he was actually part of LulzSec. And you can see here, he posted this actually back in January, so just a couple weeks ago. He said that his favorite hack was not the CIA. So he actually hacked the CIA website, among other exploits and attempts of just LulzSec. The name really, it says it all. And they literally had fuck FBI Fridays. So they would, every Friday, they would go fuck with the FBI, with whether in very different ways, like try to exploit their websites or servers or whatever. So it's really interesting. This is like a comeback story of the century, really. Like this, when this guy's younger, got in a lot of trouble hacking, really smart guy. And then now he's the CEO of Celestia, and Celestia is not just it's not just another blockchain, really. I would consider that, or say that it's something along the lines of AWS for crypto and blockchain, right? The way that it functions, and I'm sure Trill can give a better explanation, but that's really, if we're going to talk about a blue ocean strategy, that's really what it is. It makes it much easier for, I think that this could be used for enterprise, really. It's very well built, from my understanding, and the modular framework allows for enterprise to not have to build their own blockchain or deal with these more archaic versions of blockchain. This is much more advanced than previous iterations of crypto chains and blockchain in general. I like to think of it as like a launch pad of sorts, I guess you could say, launch pad / AWS, at least in like the front end viewpoint or perspective. That's how I would frame it. But yeah, they raised $55 million to launch the network, and we're sitting, as Sloth showed you, we're sitting pretty nice. Shouldn't include myself in that, but I hold some, but I didn't get in at launch. So whoever got in at the original raise, they're sitting real nice. So I think that's pretty much all I have on this. And Trill, if you want to clarify some of the stuff that I was talking about and give us a deeper dive into the technical aspects, that'd be great.
I do the point that you said how availability zones, AWS provides availability for data to move across the country, things like that. And just like with CIA, Celestia, the function or main role is to be a data availability blockchain. Share my screen to go over that a little bit more. But with blockchains, normal blockchains already have data availability needed into it. That's how you have transactions being available to you and things like that. But with Celestia, they do change how that data availability operates. I like the comparison or how it's akin to AWS because with its main role is to be data availability blockchain via the modular structure. Quickly explain what the two is. A monolithic blockchain is what we're used to with Bitcoin. All that blockchain is all the things regarding the blockchain operation are handled by one singular node. I'll show you how Celestia has this modular framework. Basically, one node on Bitcoin executes data from consensus and data availability. Not necessarily one node, but all the nodes do that. And one node will have to do all three for as far as one transaction or when a block is made. As far as Celestia, this is ended up with 3 different nodes. We have the client node, the consensus node, and the storage right there. You can tell a little bit by the name, but consensus node obviously handles consensus. Storage node stores the data. The client node is basically the end user. And all of these nodes work together to do these 4 actions. And I'll give it a little bit of an explanation as far as like how these actions or what's going on with these actions. But with the availability only block validity, basically the consensus nodes not need to execute messages on blockchains or monolithic blockchains is what we're used to. Consensus node would have to download the entire history of the blockchain to really do consensus. Not the consensus node, but it would be one node, no consensus node on the monolithic blockchain because each node would be doing all of that. In Celestia, there's hashes divvied up between those different nodes. As far as step 2 and their goals, application message, people partitioning, that's where client node should be able to download messages only relevant to their application, but downloading messages relevant to the other application. And I'll explain application is. Application in Celestia is the same thing as a smart contract. So it almost basically replaced that word application with smart contract. So with Celestia, it's more geared toward efficiency. With data availability, going through the points, like goal of trying to provide the user with only the necessary for that user to complete that specific action. And as I mentioned earlier, Celestia views data. It's up to actions between those 3 separate nodes. This third point I also explained. Application message retrieval completeness. The client node have to be able to verify the messages. So everything I'm stating is basically how all these 3 things work together. And the number 4, application space priorities. The client nodes should be able to execute their messages or transactions explicitly or discretely. One client node, which is the end user, providing verification on a specific smart contract, should not activate the other client nodes or end users to get what. And obviously, when you're vocalizing or narrow the operations, you're obviously using resources, because with Celestia, the entirety of the blockchain does not have to be used for one specific action, which may be transaction date, transactions, things like that. Another interesting thing I do think I find interesting with Celestia is they are still able to maintain the IO or the chain, because of the validation of transactions is completely different than what we're used to with monolithic blockchains. Celestia TIA kind of really revolutionizes or changes the game as far as blockchains. Yeah, I feel like that explains how Celestia works. Was introduced, this white paper that we're looking at was introduced in 2019. The mainnet didn't end up going live until 2023. One of the drawbacks, I guess, something with Celestia is it's a little more complex to the newer visuals than the regular, because most people we have your nodes, and just one node could provide almost every single function for the blockchain. Like, the Genesis node of coin could do everything that's right here. But as far as Celestia, this is all, there's just 3 different nodes. As far as any other things to touch on, it's a lot more scalable. It's more efficient just with this whole revolutionized way of block processing, and the name data or the tag data availability is basically what Celestia was created for. And if you know of Pepe was talking about Amazon Web Service, like I said, they basically provide data for almost everything that we use in the real world. It being super new doesn't have the same traction as the monolithic blockchain. Went live, I believe, in October of 2020, but there's honestly a lot of potential for Celestia changing the landscape of blockchains, and to see how they can go and improve this, I would say, the structure of their blockchain, because we're really honestly witnessing a new iteration of blockchains when it comes to modular blockchain. I believe that's all I have to say. Maybe the other thing is, like Pepe said, it's a lot easier for an institution or developer to create a coin or launch a coin on Celestia. And then we also went over how the block itself. But other than that, I believe that's it.
Thank you, everybody, for the overview of Celestia. I feel like they're making waves in the blockchain world with its unique mod approach, simplifying the creation of decentralized apps and enhancing scalability. So thank you guys so much for covering that today. And that's it for this week. As a DeFi-Logic server member, you can request chart reviews for TA Tuesday and discuss markets daily with other server members. Astrobit 2.0 goes live on Monday, and our Trading View Indicator E strategy is entering beta testing with Astrobit. We've locked in a new partnership with Blowfin for a $100 future bonus. Affiliate link is in the description below. The exchange has proof of reserve wallets on Nansen, which is an excellent standard to set for centralized exchanges. We hope more follow in their footsteps. Join our server now. Early members get free server access for life and future discounts on additional products in server. See you next Sunday. GN friends.
Join us next week in Discord for Symposium Sunday at DeFiLogic.com.